right, and we are live. So let me know in the chat if anything is off. Well, aside from the fact that Chris is missing. So to make up for that, we have so the latest technology in co-host simulation here. There we go. So now it's not just me. A virtual Chris will be will be reacting to everything I have to say. So thank you, K5, for the virtual for virtual Chris. So sorry, it's definitely a visual thing. So I apologize if you're listening on the audio version. So virtual Chris can gesture and respond to what I'm saying, but probably won't have much to say of their own. Opinions will be very one-sided. All right. Yeah, I just didn't want to move furniture, so I thought this was a better solution than having to reset all the cables and everything. So there we go. And thank you. K5 sent me that on Instagram. So now we always have Chris. We're never Chrisless. It's always a balanced frame here. All right. So, hey, Matt. Hey, Orcus Dorcas. How's it going? Yeah, so Chris is out with a fever. Luckily, it's nothing serious. It's just a cold. I think everyone's been getting like actually sick instead of, sick according to how the whole world is sick. So no gain of function illness, just a regular cold. But it was a fever, so yeah, took work off and needed to pass this week. But in virtual spirit, we have Chris. All right. So hey guys, thanks for joining us. And I'm sure this will get back to Chris. And we'll adjust the picture accordingly. But this is what I had. And I thought it was funny. It almost like lines up perfectly in the frame. And I love that it's like completely the wrong color. Like it doesn't match the actual video frame. Perfect. I should have put little like tape on the corners or something. All right. So we'll get this rolling. It's too bad because as always, whenever Chris is missing, I always miss the opinion. There's a couple of things that I'd like to hear Chris's take on, but we will bash on regardless. All right. So let's get this started. Welcome to the weekly. I'm Jeremy, and this week, unfortunately, it's a solo cast. So Chris is unable to be with us due to illness. Nothing serious, but just needed to take some time off work. So no lunch, no work lunch. So it's just me. And if you're watching the video version of this, we have a simulation of Chris to balance the frame out. So you won't hear any opinions or kind of counterpoints, but you will have a visual representation. So thank you, K5, for the virtual Chris for this week's live stream. All right. And this week on the weekly, Chaosium Group formed, Paizo terminology changes, Warhammer holiday candles, and the paper shortage is still affecting comics and tabletop. So let's start with Chaosium. So Moon Design Publications and Black Monk Games have joined forces now to create the Chaosium Group. So Moon Design Publications is based in Ann Arbor, Michigan in the U.S., and they are the majority owners of what we know as Chaosium. So the publishers of Call of Cthulhu, RuneQuest, Pendragon, 7th Sea, all of those games. And they're partnering with a European game publisher, Black Monk Games, who are based in Poland. And so their joint venture is going to be called the Chaosium Group. And so all of the assets of both of those companies are going to be joined together. And so the quote from Neil Robinson of of the Moon Design Productions was saying, he basically said that what this will do is create more employee opportunities, faster production flow, better operational processes, and enhancing expansion into Europe and new markets. So I guess that was something that I didn't know about. I knew that Call of Cthulhu, and they're probably published through a Japanese publisher, but Call of Cthulhu is very popular in Japan, but I didn't know that maybe it was not doing so well in Europe. I'm sorry, so the quote is, "The Chaosium partnership will enhance Chaosium's presence in Europe and lead to new co-developed opportunities. So the existing Black Monk and Chaosium customers should not notice any difference as we continue to fully support both brands." So this merger doesn't mean any changes or rebranding. They're just trying to pool their resources and kind of team up to, I guess, be able to present things in the marketplace a little bit more. So, yeah, so if you're in Europe, keep an eye out for changes, maybe some more visibility of the Chaosium products. So we will see how that goes, and hopefully that's not a sign of any trouble. They are the majority owner. So hopefully that means that things are going strong, and this is just building, this is building on a strength instead of compensating for weakness. So we'll see how that pans out. All right. And the next thing that I wanted to talk about is Pathfinder. So Paizo keeps coming up every week. We're talking something Paizo, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. And this is something I really would like Chris for, but it's just an interesting terminology change. So the Pathfinder rulebooks are dropping, let me see if I can pronounce this correctly, phylactery from their in-game terminology. So recently, Pathfinder made a change to publications, starting in the most recent chapter of Strength of Thousands, the Pathfinder 2E Adventure Path. They changed the term phylactery to soul cages. So phylactery has been in tabletop probably ever since the beginning. They talk a little bit about the origin of it, and I guess it appeared in the Doorway to the Red Star. Paizo is explaining a little bit about the change. So starting with the Lich Dwardek in this adventure, we are making a long overdue terminology change. The use of the word phylactery as a term in which an item in which a lich stores the souls of both a lich stores their souls is both inaccurate and inappropriate, given the evil nature of liches. So I think the big problem is, liches are by default an evil magic user. So using phylactery and its relationship to that term in the real world, they're seeing is now problematic. So liches in second edition now will be using the term soul cages. So apart from this name change, the mechanics of how it functions is not going to be altered. And so the origin of this, like we talked about, so both Gary Gygax and Rob Kuntz is, they first recognized liches in Greyhawk. So their first appearance of liches were in the first ever rules expansion for D&D Greyhawk, and in this version, a lich is an undead magic user, and the problem is that phylactery refers to, in real world, it refers to a leather box worn by Jews while praying that contains passages of the Torah. So many Jews alternatively refer to a phylactery as a tefillin. So the word phylactery is associated with a tefillin through the Greek New Testament, and it's noted that subsequent descriptions of a phylactery in Dungeons & Dragons even went so far as to note the box contains spells written on a strip of paper, similar to how a tefillin contains passages of the Torah inside of it. So the connection is just a little bit too close and a little bit problematic because of the fact that it's liches, and so we're saying it's evil. And so this is in response to, given to the fact that there's a lot of original, fantasy literature contained a lot of anti-Semitic imagery and symbolism that kind of keeps recurring, and either through ignorance, which is probably mostly the case. I don't think it's actually malicious. It's just interesting words or interesting, items or ideas are just brought into fantasy and tabletop. So it could be, you know, deliberate bigotry. We've seen that in some cases with you know, Magic the Gathering card naming schemes and things, but it could also be just out of ignorance. So Paizo is making this move to try to you know, just to prevent that misunderstanding and take any sense of something that could be, you know, anti-Semitic baked into their game system out. And this came up, and something that I wanted to ask Chris about with this is, over the kind of Halloween month, I was watching a lot of the old Universal monster movies. And then there was a video essay on YouTube that I watched about the you know, the popularity and the origins of those characters, and, you know, why so, you know, European folklore basically, and how they were brought into you know, the classic Universal monster movies we know, so the Mummy and Dracula and the, you know, Frankenstein's monster. But this essay was talking about how both vampires, so Dracula, and the Wolfman, so werewolves or lycans, did both have origins in anti-Semitic, you know, kind of myths and folklores and legends. So it's going to be difficult, I think, untangling a lot of this if you know, so much of fantasy is going to be based on mythology and folklore from Europe. It's going to keep coming up. We're going to keep having these things, and it's probably not. I mean, I don't know the sources, you know, exactly that this essay was using, but it may not definitively have been that, you know, a Jewish, an anti-Semitic or an anti-Jewish idea was propagated through this myth in its origin, but it could be that it just came to be associated because of the bigotry, because of the, you know, kind of xenophobia and things that happen in certain countries and in certain, you know, countryside people. So there may have just become this connection. So what are we to do about that? I mean, are we really supposed to not have vampires and werewolves in fantasy, you know, fantasy tabletop because of these origins? This, you know, it's going to be a very tangled mess. And I think just, you know, acknowledging problems in origin and things is probably the best that people are going to be able to do, because if we have to start removing and renaming things just to break that association, I think it's going to go pretty deep and pretty long into sorting all of that out. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing that Paizo is now addressing. So these little things are going to keep coming up, and they're going to keep, you know, renaming and stamping things out. But in fact, can you really completely remove, you know, kind of ugly history and anti-Semitism out of, you know, long traditions of folklore? Because that's, you know, people came up with these, you know, folklore served a certain function to put a name and put a story to the bad things that happened to people and the reason their, you know, sheep died and crops failed and whatever. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. And so there probably are, I guess the strength of that would be is looking to other folklores and mythologies to, you know, provide maybe things that are less in, you know, out of that context. So we will see. So there's something, maybe if we have time next week, I'll hit Chris up about that, because I was curious, because it, you know, it's going to keep being a problem. And so how much like redaction do we need to have in these old role play books and stuff, because, you know, obviously it's not clear whether the original use of the word that Paizo just changed, phylactery, was done, you know, was chosen deliberately, and as it started to get closer and closer to matching its real world equivalent, yeah, so so we will see whether it's bigotry or ignorance. I'm sure it's a little bit of both. All right. And for the impending Christmas season, see, there's nothing in November here in Japan, so we go directly from Halloween to Christmas. There's no Thanksgiving buffer or any sort of holiday. So it's brutally Christmas right now. The Christmas music is playing and the decorations are going up as we speak. So in that, because of the season, we also have available to us, oh God, 40K, Warhammer 40K scented holiday candles. So that license, Games Workshop loves to be whoring out. I don't know if there's a better way to say it, but they're just spreading it everywhere. So a wonderful company called Merchoid, who I know nothing about, but from the look of their Merchoid product, it's it's a little, it's a kind of a cheesy novelty type site. So Games Workshop and Merchoid are teaming up to sell Warhammer 40K scented candles. So for $20 US and probably some ungodly shipping, you can smell things such as Slanesh Soporific candles, which are the scent of delusion, Space Marine Dark Angel candles, which would be the scent of faith, Astra Militarum Catachan Potpourri candles, which would be the scent of the death world, which sounds wonderful, and the Tyranids Toxicrene Spores candle, which would be the scent of the Great Devourer. So, yeah, that's the selection that they have. And the one thing that I've always thought about the grim, dark, far future is it probably does not smell good. It's just the scent of burning corpses and, bolter round, discharged, bolter casings, things. I don't imagine anything smells very good. So this does smack a little bit of like the, KFC video game console or whatever. It's just a stupid idea that's harmless because they're just putting some stickers on some probably existing scented candles. And then they have this promotion. So of course we're talking about it because it is so stupid and it's a little reckless with the license. But the website also has things like the, ever-present ugly holiday sweater. So for $60, you can get an Adeptus Astartes or Orcs holiday sweater with an ugly pattern on it that you can wear. So we continue to see that Games Workshop is not quite sure what their brand is, and is it funny? Is it really that embedded in the culture that you can wear an orc ugly holiday sweater and people even know what that is, what you're referring to, like what any of the symbols or anything represent? You're gonna have to explain it to them and they're gonna say, oh, Warhammer. Yeah, it's just, there's still, I don't know if they're ever going to be able to get the stink off of, speaking of scented candles, get the stink off of Warhammer as, a pretty geeky, but also pretty like edgelord, kind of not the best people in the world are representing the hobby. They're not going to be able to get that stink off of the IP very easily. So this big expansion that they're making and grabbing up the animation and doing a streaming service and things, they may be putting the cart before the horse, and they may not be out there as much. I mean, I think they need, and this is difficult to do because the violence and the genocide and the xenophobia are so much part of that setting. How do you make a Saturday morning cartoon? How do you, make stuff that reaches, different demographics and, but also kind of accurately depicts this setting and kind of gets it out there? I think they're overestimating. I mean, it's a really enjoyable, it's a wonderful lore and a fun setting, especially when it has a little bit of a sense of humor, a little bit of satire in it. But as far as like trying to mainstream it like a Star Wars property or, it doesn't seem like that's going to work. But it's not going to stop them from trying. So we'll see. We'll see how much they can trash this IP before people are like, why are we doing this? So yes, so you can order, if you head over to the Merchoid website, you can have a look at all of the wonderful 40K merchandise that they offer. So it seems like they are, like the license is going out, t-shirts, and they have people that are doing art prints, and there's coffee mugs and, all kinds of tat around. I think that's the British term, right? All kinds of just kind of junk around with Warhammer stuff stuck to it. So yeah, we'll see more and more of that until they convince us that this is a mainstream brand that everybody knows and it's as recognizable as Mickey Mouse. So, some more complaining about GW, but yeah, it's just the holiday candles thing. That's pretty weak. All right. Yeah. See, obviously, I pick these stories because I'm looking for a reaction. I'm getting a good reaction. If you see the visual, like I'm getting a good reaction from Chris through all of these stories. But yeah, a lot of it is meant to spur discussion. So when I'm just discussing it with myself, it's a lot less, a lot less appealing. All right, and finally, kind of the we're ending on a kind of a down note, but there's more discussion about publishers are being hit by paper shortages as some print runs are halted. So, of course, we had the shipping crisis. Now postage is getting incredibly insane. We had Brexit and the lockdowns making everything as far as international shipping and all sorts of logistics for physical goods becoming much more complicated. And now there's reports from several places that things are not only not good, but maybe getting worse. So Image Comics has reported that they've stopped doing second printings on all of their titles. So, American comics are not doing particularly good. They're being dominated by Japanese manga. And so for the foreseeable future, Image will not do second runs on books. So the first run that they do is about all. There's not going to be any reprints. And that may not be, such a big deal. There may not be that much of a demand anyhow. But we shall see. So the quote from Alex Cox is, "At Image, we're proactively streamlining our releases to reflect these circumstances. So as a result, our stores are thinking carefully about how many copies of Image Comics and titles they order. They've left money on the table in order to order too few, and it is expensive to order too many. So please keep in mind that there will be limited stock available for reorders, and we will not be reprinting anything that sells through at the distributor level. We are also adjusting the schedule of upcoming titles over the next few weeks to reflect more responsible usage of raw material availability. This week is a lighter offering than what you might have expected, and these printings will be the only printings." So maybe we'll have a renaissance in the collectability of of first-run issues of Image Comics. But yeah, everything, and also Image Comics, I think they just recently announced that they organized. The Comic Book Workers United announced that Image Comics has unionized. So the staff working at Image Comics have voted a supermajority to declare the formation of a union. So that's an interesting combination of things happening with Image. So their sales are going to be down because they're not going to be publishing as much, and they just organized. So there's going to be negotiations with a union, and hopefully, that'll be good for the employees to get better treatment, better benefits, and better prices. But can Image afford to do this at this time? And we also heard from Kickstarter. So they're also warning about disruptions in the supply chain. So first, no, you are not alone. The issues we are experiencing, or that are experienced by creators of every kind in every industry in every part of the world, know that many of your backers will now be familiar with these complications, and many already realize that the slower than usual delivery times are expected, and that longer timetables are not necessarily due to poor planning, but to factors beyond anyone's control. So we've been hearing that for a couple of years now with Kickstarter projects. I mean, it's just things have gotten crazy, and unfortunately, people that were behind before lockdowns and supply chain problems are now even further behind. So we had things that were like 3 years delayed, and then they became 5 years delayed. I'm looking at you, Siege of the Citadel. So it is a difficult time to be fulfilling physical product, and that's why we've seen kind of shuffling. Heard rumors about companies kind of putting themselves up for sale, possibly the biggest board game company. And so physical things, because as we saw during the lockdown, people are turning to a lot of digital and online versions of things. So they weren't buying physical copies, or they probably were because Amazon was still shipping them. But once it comes to producing another print run of D&D players' handbooks or whatever, maybe people will just have to resort to the digital versions and things through virtual tabletops. And then Steve Jackson Games also named, they called this an extinction level event. Wow. In August, they released a statement that said, as an example of how freight is impacting our games, our Car Wars 6th edition project required 5 containers, all in the water and slowly making their way to our primary warehouses. Of course, this must be just talking to their customers and reassuring them that each cost over 3 times more than they would have if the game was shipped in 2020. As many of you know, 2020 was the planned ship date for the Car Wars 6th edition, and then the global pandemic decided to enter the picture and completely disrupted our plan and manufacturing schedule. Yeah, so they're calling it extinction level event. So Steve Jackson Games may be being a little over dramatic, but if they're looking at 3 times the cost for shipping, that's going to affect their profits on this game. And it's not like they can, raise the prices for, people. If people have already pre-ordered, they're not going to be able to say, well, could you give us $10 more because of shipping? So yeah, it's not looking good. And it seems like at the beginning, things aren't so bad. The world stopped, but everything's still moving. But it had to catch up. Like, now in 2021, we're getting like the full effect of all of this. So people were, joyful, and companies like Games Workshop and a lot of Amazon, of course, we're seeing record profits and stock prices climbing. At now it's starting to hit. Now the lack of resources is starting to hit. So there was a quote from Chris Tang, who's a professor at UCLA, studying the global supply chain management, and he said this all comes down to paper pulp. So in the mills that it's produced, there's a huge labor shortage right now. And I guess if you've ever been near a paper pulp, it's also it's not the best smelling place to work, but I think labor we've seen it in airlines in North America, and and fast food and everywhere. So there's labor problems in just about every industry, and of course, when you're talking about something like the very beginning of the supply chain of any published goods, paper pulp, paper mills, worker shortages are going to slow that down. Worker shortages at ports are going to slow down the unloading of cargo vessels. So at every end of the supply chain, it's labor and people either, unhappy with their situation, organizing to try to make it better, or just giving up and walking away from those kinds of jobs. And so that has meant that in August, paper prices were up 50% because of supply chain disruptions. So that means anything published is going to be even more brutal. And I've even heard things about like the lumber industry and things having a difficult time meeting demands. So if you're trying to build a house now, your materials cost is going through the roof and all that good stuff. So we continue to feel this, the ripple, and it seems like the ripples aren't getting smaller. It's not diminishing from the center of the event. It's actually the ripples are getting bigger because the small factors are piling up in the supply chains and making things that much worse. So yeah, we will see. We'll see how those things continue to go. I'm sorry, I keep glancing at the screen and seeing Chris's reaction to all this stuff. I mean, I'm giving him nothing but bad news, and I think I'm gonna think Chris is getting injured. All right, but that is everything I had for this week. So if you would like to follow up with either Chris or I. So if you want to find Chris, if you look at Hivemind, spelled with Y's, on both itch.io and Twitch, you can find everything Chris is up to. And I do another live stream, which is a cartooning podcast, or cartooning live stream, that's never been made into a podcast. So Abuse Cartoons is where you can find me, both on Twitch and YouTube, for my cartooning that I do. So about a 3 hour, roughly, like, between 2.5 to 4 hours every week, depending, live stream where I draw the 2 cartoons that I post every week. And those cartoons are on gocomics.com/domestic abuse. And this whole gaming tabletop thing can be found at Upturned Table. So if you'd like to support this weekly podcast that we do, podcast and live stream, please visit patreon.com/upturnedtable and become a weekling. So we have our master weekling in the chat. If you would like to be a follower, please visit Patreon and give us some support to make this more regular. And hopefully, we can buy some cold medicine for Chris and, get everything sorted out. So that is all for this week. And hopefully we'll be back to normal next week. And in the meantime, there's going to be some live streams. There's a couple of things. So the I'm going to do, I guess I'm going to turn it into a flip through. So Frostgrave, we've been streaming a Frostgrave campaign. And I want to do a quick comparison of first and second edition and a flip through of the second edition rulebook. And so that'll kind of teach you how to play as well. So if you want to watch the live stream and kind of enjoy what's going on, it'll be a run through of the mechanics of the game itself to help you understand. That was a request from Matt, one of our patrons, to kind of learn a little bit about how the game is run. And there's much better how to plays, like strictly how to play videos out there for Frostgrave, but I thought I would just do a run through of the second edition book and compare it to the first, because that's the one we have the most experience with. So it should be good. But yeah, so everyone, thanks for watching, and we will do this same thing again next week. So upturntable.com for everything that we're doing, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Goodbye. All right. Oh, there we go. Nice. Excellent. Oh, thanks, Orcus. Dorcas, take care. See you later. So hey, Miguel, how's it going? Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, supporting digital Kickstarters is probably the safest bet right now. Or at least, people that are definitely going to ship PDFs, because then if publishing gets backed up, it's no problem. Yeah, Nurgle candles I don't think would be great. Nice. Oh yeah, no, Miguel, that's a good point. Yeah, it probably was not. It's out of ignorance, and I think a lot of terminology, because this is, when you're talking about a word like phylactery, I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's coming from another language, and it's, so not only does the sound of the word and the meaning kind of get, separated from it, but it's just people being cautious and sensitive. And the thing I wanted to bring up with Chris in discussion would be, if you're talking about things like this, so Paizo, right now has had a little bit of trouble. They had labor organizing, but they've also had reports of abuse and misconduct and mismanagement within the company. So these sorts of things are also, kind of virtue signaling for Paizo to say, oh, we're a good company. This is what we're doing, and we're trying to make things as safe and inoffensive as possible, and we're a socially conscious, socially sensitive company. But they're making these gestures just like Blizzard is doing right now, and companies are doing this weird virtue signal to distract you from what's going on. And it's a lot about, I don't think people are being very honest about this, but when companies are doing this, especially publicly traded corporations, when they're doing things like this, they're just trying to reaffirm brand loyalty. They're just trying to differentiate themselves from their competition, and saying, no, we're the good guys, they suck, drink Pepsi. It's that sort of thing that makes it, it just makes it ring a little false. And so if you really want to go down this hole, like I was talking about, then we're going to have to get rid of vampires and werewolves, and there's so many things that you're going to be able to link to possibly negative connotations. And when you're thinking about, especially if you're publishing globally, publishing RPG books globally in multiple languages, you're going to hit all sorts of things like that, where you're going to be offending people in certain situations because you're not aware of political conditions, of cultural or ethnic conditions in all kinds of other situations. So yeah, it could be particularly endless. Yeah, Blizzard is Yeah. No, I think that's true, Miguel. It's a little bit of a smoke screen, and just a reminder. Hey, remember we're the good guys. We're the guys that changed race to ancestry. Paizo wants to make sure we don't forget that even if they're not treating their employees very well, they are they are a good company. But yeah, Blizzard, the whole Blizzard thing is so depressing. Yeah, didn't they? I think I just heard they canceled BlizzCon, not because of pandemic concerns or anything, but just because their reputation is so trash. They might worry about how live streams and things came across if there were going to be any protests or anything, because that would be a great opportunity if they're going to live stream, BlizzCon. That'd be a great opportunity for protests and things. So they're turning it into an online event just to keep things safe and to protect their public image. Yeah, which is a mess. But yeah, so thanks. Yeah, Miguel, thanks for dropping by the chat. And Matt, as always, it's good to see you guys. And Orcus, who had to run. Yeah, it's very very crazy, the conditions right now, and it seems like it's only going to get worse. I mean, it's that going to get worse before it gets better kind of thing with all these disappointments in supply chain and stuff. So just all the physical things you have now, just enjoy them, because you may not be able to add anything physically to your life for a while. And we have to prioritize. I think there's certain things that paper should be used for that, if it's hobby related, I think that's it's gonna be down on the list of priorities. Although, it's hard to say, because I think hobbies and distractions saved a lot of people during lockdown. They had some distraction when they, couldn't go to work or were, telecommuting. I think that was a useful thing to have. I love the paralyzed Chris in horrible reaction to something that I said. Paralyzed Chris across the table. Yeah. So if you haven't seen the visual component of this podcast, if you're listening to it on the Patreon RSS or just the regular audio, yeah, you need to see the visual for this week, because I saved myself from having to move a chair by putting a well-placed JPEG of Chris next to me. So hopefully, yeah, we'll be back to full strength and normal next time. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, that's really crazy. Yeah, that's the good thing. So I've heard that, yeah, there's so Cubicle 7 and Free League, and I think Modifius too, for the most part, if you order from their web stores, if there's going to be a delay, getting you something, you're going to get the PDF right away. And I forget who it is. There's one company that no matter who you buy it from, if you just show them proof of purchase, if you buy it from Amazon or another online retailer or something, a physical copy, if you show them proof of purchase, they'll send you the PDF. They'll just send you like a voucher for Drive-Thru RPG. And I forget which company that is. I'm going to have to double check. But that's a great way to support things, because there have been, even if they have the physical book in a warehouse, it does mean it's going to take longer to get to you, even if it already exists. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've heard a little bit about that too. There's still so we're talking about ports and the actual unloading of cargo, and there's not it's a huge backup. So yeah, based on cooperation from 17 different federal agencies, Miguel is saying they need to go over paperwork and we're importing something and nobody is cooperating. So yeah, you're just getting delays. Not only do you have limited port workers, but you also have more complicated procedures of bringing stuff in. So yeah, it's going to be a mess for a while. And they're also having that, they're talking about a few months ago, the container shortage, where so many of the containers are leaving Asia and nothing is coming back because Asia is so export based that, there's nothing, they're running out of containers to send stuff in. And because the West is not sending anything back, and I guess sending empty containers back is not something they want to be doing right now. Oh, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The delays are not going to be good, and people are, especially with China, they're being really secretive about their spikes in infections and kind of what the situation is there. They just mysteriously, things are delayed or things, don't happen, and you don't know what that's, based on. If that's government interference, if that's, actual labor shortages and illnesses. It's fun. Yeah, and we're gonna kind of be in the dark about how all this works for a long time. Uh, yeah, yeah. There was a lot of people talking about the changes with Brexit, and that was Games Workshop will probably never be totally upfront about what that's done to them, but they definitely. I think Cursed City was the first victim of Brexit, even though they won't talk about it, because I guess Brexit changes import laws. This is just stuff that I've read. I have no verification. I haven't checked original sources on any of this, but Brexit changed the laws where things that are need to be manufactured in the UK and only a certain portion of items. So if you're printing cards or rule books or whatever in China, when that comes in to be all assembled, put in the same box, only a certain percentage of it can be exported from the outside, and otherwise that raises the tariffs on your goods, and that created a problem where they couldn't. I read a couple of different things. So that Brexit rule change caused that problem, and then also the reason that the Chris City turned into a limited edition and is not going to be supported in the near future is because the partner that they printed the paper materials with also said, yeah, if you want to get reprints, you're not going to get reprints until 2022. So we may see next year, them suddenly say, hey, guess what? That game that was limited is unlimited now because we figured out how to print things for it again. So we'll see. But yeah, it's only getting more more frustrating because we're seeing the combination of a lot of different factors, and so yeah, and that's that's definitely gonna benefit people with bigger means and better connections. So Wizards of the Coast is going to have an advantage over a lot of other companies for a lot of these manufacturing hiccups and things because they're doing stuff at such scale that they're a priority, I'm sure, in a lot of situations compared to the smaller companies. So it's all bad news. But yeah, I appreciate everybody joining this week. It's good to see you guys in the chat, and we will be doing this again next week. So yeah, I'll wrap it up, and hopefully we can touch on a couple of these ideas. If there's related stories or things that come up next week, I'll try to bring up some of these ideas, especially this virtue signaling in in tabletop and stuff with Chris. But nice. yeah. I tried to line up the JPEG of Chris so it would actually be exactly Chris's silhouette. So no legs, but the mic stand is lined up, and almost the line of the wall edge there. To make it extra ridiculous. Yeah, right. We need to get our plastic crack in Japan. I hate the fact that they keep raising the price on the crack. Yeah, the Japanese prices are the worst. We're going to be competing with Australia for the worst hobby prices soon. Yeah, I'm curious though. That was the announcement at that last shareholders meeting for Games Workshop is they are moving into China. They are going to produce, there's 75 products or something that they said they're now going to produce for the Chinese market. Does that mean we get a better supply chain? Because we're not getting things from the UK. We might be able to get things directly from China. Does that help Japan and Japanese prices? Or are they going to keep that false? Because they kind of have this, Games Workshop is a luxury hobby brand in Japan. They have that identity already. And also it's very, Kaigai, very foreign. So that's, what's supposedly the appeal, but that would be great. And hopefully we'll just get some disreputable eBay sellers that will steal things from factories and list them for sale. Who knows? But yeah, that's the plastic crack issue will continue in Japan. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for joining me, and we hopefully will be back full strength next week, and hopefully get some more streaming in, some more Frostgrave, and I'm doing some printing. So I didn't bring the book this week, but I'll have it on the table next week. So Sludge we are looking at too. So a kind of weird alternate or ahistorical, I think they call it ahistorical Napoleonic skirmish game. So I'm printing Chris's army right now, and I'm still kind of sourcing my miniatures. I think I'm going to go maybe with Knucklebones. Knucklebones has some good black powder, kind of musket-looking weird Napoleonic characters, all wearing like weird face masks and stuff. So yeah, we're going to do some play with that. It seems to use a lot of tokens, but it looks like a fun game. So look for after we get through our Frostgrave campaign, we'll be putting together some sludge armies. And yeah, and the creator of the I'm sorry, of Frostgrave is doing a gothic kind of horror Napoleonic skirmish game as well. It also has solo rules, and it's called like Silver Lance or something. I can't remember exactly, but Joseph McCullough, the creator of Frostgrave, is doing a gothic horror Napoleonic. So we'll see about that. So somebody watching the stream doesn't like me bitching about Games Workshop or something. I forget what is the hot topic, but already we've disappointed. And it always happens when it's just me. That's when we get. So I am solely responsible for all of the thumbs down on this channel. I can face that now. All right. So take care, everyone, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.